spice the topic? You're good? Fantastic. Well, yeah, perfect. Right, so important detail. I am from Norway. I like to say that. But I do live in Sweden and have been living in Sweden for 9 years. And when I moved from Norway, from Oslo to Uppsala, close to Stockholm, I started high school in Sweden. And the only actual difference when you're going to finish high school in Sweden compared to Norway would be that you have to do a final school project. And the only rule for that project is that it takes 100 hours, which I thought was fantastic. And I actually wanted to go abroad and get some tan and maybe do the diving license or something. But then I discovered that, I might as well do something more valuable with those 100 hours. So I had like a fundraising project, you could call it, inviting actually business people to come and to listen to a topic, the topic of prostitution and trafficking being presented. And after this, you have to actually tell your classmates what you did. And I remember asking, and let's say it was a group about this size, and we were 19 at that time, and I asked my fellow classmates if they knew what trafficking was and how it expressed itself as prostitution, and what the situation was in Sweden and in Scandinavia. And this is about 8 years ago, and at that time, actually no one raised their hand. And this kind of troubled me, So I started thinking about this, and summer went on, and I finished high school. And by the fall, I just realized, I cannot just go on, live my life, and know that nobody knows about this. This is just not acceptable. So in Sweden, the rule is that you have to be 3 people to start an organization. I was 1. So I kind of forced my boyfriend at that time, which now we're married, so it turned out good, and another friend of mine. So we were only 3 people in the beginning. But now, as you said, we are based in Austria, Germany, Norway, and Sweden, which is fantastic, I think. And it's all young people wanting to change the situation, and really just question the system of prostitution. And also it's about, the demand side. We really want to get young people on board to get a new generation of people thinking differently about prostitution, not thinking it's the oldest profession, but the oldest oppression. So that's basically what we're doing. The situation in Scandinavia, just briefly about the situation, you could see, just as you could see that prostitution is something dividing Europe into 2 and the European Union into 2, you would also see that it's actually dividing also Scandinavia, you could say, partially into 2, because we have Denmark, which is a country that has legalized prostitution. And you could, just as Germany is kind of the brothel of Europe, the nickname would be the brothel of Europe, Denmark would be the brothel of Scandinavia, you could say that. And we do have, both in Sweden and in Norway, let's focus on Sweden and Norway for now. We do have street prostitution, we have indoor prostitution, we have so-called apartment brothels, where prostitution is happening. But I would say, and this is especially for Sweden, obviously internet is the new arena for prostitution. That's where most of it is happening, But I have to say, I'm really, really proud of Sweden being the first country to really do something about this and to really say that, buying sex is not a human right. We have to question this. So then, we're really starting to kind of shift the focus, you could say. And in Sweden, we had done a lot of research. I'm saying we. I'm identifying with you as a Norwegian, but I'm saying we when I'm representing Sweden. We would say that we would have, let's say, 34 years of research in Sweden on prostitution. And what we really discovered was that, prostitution is really harmful, both to the individual and to the society. And the main focus before 1999, when we got the Swedish model, the Nordic model, the main focus was still on the trafficker and the pimp, for them keeping up with the system. But that's when we kind of realized, we have to kind of shift focus here. We need to really address the real issue, and that is that people are actually prepared to pay for sex. That is what is driving prostitution. And the thing is that, just as my fellow speakers have said here, that sex trafficking expresses itself as prostitution. And I think it was you who said it really, really well, that trafficking is just a process. The outcome is prostitution. You cannot separate those 2. It's just not possible. It's just like 1 + 1 is 2, and trafficking equals prostitution. That's just how it is. So I think it's really, really important that we are prepared to really focus on the demand. And we also need to talk about the attitudes really driving the demand. So I want to go to the Nordic model. Let's go to the Y part. So Sweden got the Nordic model in a minute. There you go. Okay, it's a bit shifted, but can you see it? Yeah? Good. Right, so Sweden got the Nordic model in 1999. And I have to tell you, dear friends, that I used to live in Norway by that time. I was only 10 years old. And I can actually remember people in my surrounding, grown-ups, laughing about Sweden. Something stupid that Sweden has done, something, this crazy law that they got. And I was only 10 years old. But I still remember this. I still remember my dad talking about Sweden as a really bad example of something. And I didn't understand it at that time. And I also remember laughing, of Sweden, just to kind of feel adult or something. But then when moving to Sweden, and I just realized, wow, this is a law that, I remember people laughing of. And I find it so interesting that Norway then, 10 years later, decided to, exchange laughter into action and really decided to go the same way. And I think that's fantastic. And I think that's a lot of proof, actually, that they do, they can see that what's happening in Sweden is really good, basically. So it's basically, the law is based upon the acknowledgement that prostitution is harmful for individual and for society. That's like the main base for the law. And what I really like about the law is that it's a normative law, meaning it is controversial because it's normative, it's supposed to change the way we think about prostitution. It's actually kind of going inside your head and changing the way you view prostitution. And you could find that controversial, obviously, but still that is also where everything starts. It starts in your mind, it starts with your thoughts, it starts with your attitudes. Everything you do starts with the thoughts. So we have to kind of go inside people's minds and really, just change the foundation of our thinking in terms of prostitution. So it also was a law, or is a law, meant to prevent entry into prostitution, It's a preventive law. That's right, I really love it. In Freethem, we really like to work preventive. We want to do something before it actually happens. Not only cutting the grass, the weed when it shows, but actually, tearing it up with the roots. I think that's very crucial. So this is a preventive law meant to both change people's minds, but also to prevent people from entering the sex industry and also prevent people from even buying sex. It's harder to learn an old dog to sit. You have to start with the youngsters. And finally, it's a tool to combat sex trafficking, meaning we do acknowledge the fact that sex trafficking expresses itself as prostitution. Therefore, we need to talk about the demand, and we need to use this as a tool. And you have to know that the Swedish police are actually saying, they said it just last Monday at a big conference, that the most important tool that they have against trafficking is this law. That's how they find the bars, that's how they find the people in prostitution, and that's how they find the VIPs. This is very important. So the law, you could say, is based upon three perspectives. First is equality, and meaning that even though it could be just the opposite, you still have people buying sex from both gender, but we do still acknowledge that the majority of people buying sex are male, and then the majority of people selling sex are female. So therefore, in a modern day society, this is just not acceptable that one gender gets to buy another gender. That's really the thinking behind the law. Also, it has sort of a victim perspective. Obviously, you could argue, in terms of the word here, victim. I really like what you're using, survivor. I think that's fantastic. But that's what it kind of just says in the legal framework, that it has a victim perspective, meaning that we do not want to blame those who are already in this vulnerable position. Just as you said, that we do not want to criminalize those selling sex, because we acknowledge that they are in a vulnerable position. And we do not want to place, even more burden upon them and making them vulnerable and criminal. That's just not happening. So I'm fond of that too. And also the third perspective is to really target demand and to really, just establish the fact that, what is driving this is the demand. This is just like any other business. If I'm going to sell my pants to you, I need to be aware that you want to buy my pants. Otherwise, I'm not going to make any money. So it's just like simple economy thinking here. So just some short facts. Can you see the next? Yeah. Right, I just want to share with you that Denmark, even though Denmark is 40 times smaller than Sweden, you still have 4 times as much human trafficking cases. In 2008, you had 2,250 trafficking cases in Denmark. I think this shows, in terms of Denmark legalizing prostitution and in terms of Sweden criminalizing the buying of sex. Also, you would see, if you do studies, and there's a huge study done with a cross-section of 150 countries, you would see that those countries who have legalized prostitution have enormous amounts of trafficking cases compared to, for instance, Sweden or even Norway now, because Norway are getting there, I have to tell you. And what I really find is so fantastic is that young people tend to be more supportive in terms of this law. And you can actually really see that people growing up with the law agrees with it more, And that is a very good proof actually that it does work, because those growing up with it tend to agree with it, tend to think it's a good law. And in the beginning in Sweden, no one even wanted this law. It was such a debate, just as you have here and still have in some form in Norway in terms of this law. But now we really see that the public support is really increasing, and in Sweden, let's say we have about 70 to 80% of people agreeing with this law, and most of the support is for the young people. They are the most supportive.